Welcome to Weekend Design. Chances are if you cook very often, then you end up with a lot of scraps. And with 5 kids, that's very true for Riverside artist Kerri Halligan. But instead of throwing these scraps away, she's found a way to make saving and reusing them easier. Here she is to show us how to make a decorative compost bin.
You need a container that you are going to use for the compost bin. I have a 5-quart ice cream container. It has a lid and the bucket. The next thing that you'll need is you'll need some decorative paper. I've taken scrapbook paper, or if you have scraps from a magazine, whatever you want to use to decorate the bucket. You would also need some Mod Podge. It allows you to seal paper so that you paint over it, it attaches it to the bucket, and then it'll also form a seal so that it won't get ruined if the outside of the bucket gets wet. Then you will want a brush to apply the Mod Podge. I like a wider brush. This one is about 1 inch wide. Some scissors, and I also have a paper cutter. This is not necessary, but if you have one, then it can make it quicker for you when you're cutting the paper. You will also need a pen or a pencil. The first step is to kind of get an idea of the design that you want to make and to look through whatever material, scrapbooking paper or paper that you have available, and to get an idea of the design in your mind before you start. So in my instance, the ice cream bucket had a red handle, so I know that I wanted to work with the red, and I also wanted something that would look good in our kitchen. From that point, you would want to cut the scrapbooking paper into shapes. It doesn't have to be exact. Next, I'm going to take my paper cutter to show you how this can make it go a little quicker. I like to get a triangular or a wedge shape. The bucket is a little bit wider at the top than it is at the bottom. If you tried to apply a perfectly flat piece here, you would find that towards the top, your paper would end up wrinkling. And so I don't want to get a whole lot of wrinkling when I start putting the paper on. So while I'm cutting this, I'm trying to think ahead of my design. At this point, it's just a rough draft idea, and then I find that once I start actually applying the strips to the bucket, I may decide to change it. That's the great thing about it, is that you're the artist, and you can decide exactly how you want it. Okay, now I'm ready to take my bucket, and for now I'm going to go ahead and just take the lid off, and then I'm going to open my Mod Podge, and I just start taking my paper and painting it onto the back of the paper, covering the surface entirely. You just want to have a thin coating on the paper. And further along in the process, we will apply more Mod Podge over the top of it to seal it. And then it's kind of like a puzzle process in that you take what you've cut and you try to think about, how it would look on the bucket. You can have some overlap. It's not a problem at all. It really is hard to mess up. Okay, I think that'll do it. The next thing that I want to do is I want to even up these edges here by taking strips of paper and applying the Mod Podge and pasting it on to the top and the bottom part of the bucket. As it happens, the scrapbooking paper that I have has strips available, but this is not a requirement at all. You can just take whatever one of the papers you've already used and cut it into strips. This time I think I'm going to go with the green pattern. And my goal here is just to neaten those edges up. All right, we're going to set that aside for a second. And I want to cover the lid of the bucket next. I don't want it to say chocolate ice cream. I want it to say compost. What I'm doing here is I'm going to trace around the lid just to give the rough circle shape. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the scissors and cut around the pencil or pen mark. Okay. This gives us a circle shape that is a bit larger than the area that we're trying to cover. So really it's too big to fit in here. I want it to nestle inside the inner rim here. So I need to cut a little bit more off of our circle. Just ever so gently press it. I don't want to cause a hard crease in here, just a gentle crease. And the reason that I'm doing this is just trying to make our circle a little bit smaller so that it'll fit inside our bucket lid. Doesn't have to be exact, you just want something that's going to cover that writing. All right, now I'm ready to take my Mod Podge and paint the circle just like I did the scraps when I was doing the main part of the bucket. Smooth it out. Okay, so wherever there's a wrinkle, start from the center and work your way out. The next thing that I want to do is I want to notify perhaps guests that might be at our house or the purpose of this bucket. And I'm going to do that by taking scrapbooking stickers and writing compost on our lid. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to cover the entire surface of the paper with Mod Podge. We're going to do that for the lid, and we're also going to do that for the bucket. Now is the part where we're going to try to make it somewhat waterproof, not to where you would want to soak this or run it through the dishwasher, but to where if it does get a little bit wet, it won't be destroyed. So I've covered the entire surface here, and I'll do probably 2 to 3 coats on the lid and on the bucket. Okay, so now we have all of our coats on, so now it's just ready to dry. 20 minutes is probably good at this point, and then we'll be ready to start using it. It's probably not something that's going to last forever, but I would say that you probably could get a couple years worth of use out of it. We always try to teach our children to do things so that our carbon footprint is less than if we were very wasteful. So when you use a compost bin, you can actually take those scraps, put them in a compost bin in your backyard, and then eventually you can use that matter if you're growing a garden or flowers. So it's just a way to utilize the scraps from the kitchen and not contribute to the landfill problem. I like to take things that we would have thrown away and find a use for it. And then that prevents me from going to the store and purchasing something for a use where, if I'm just creative and look around, I might have something around already.
Thanks, Kerri. An item made of recycled materials that's also used to better the environment. What a great idea. For more Weekend Design, continue to check Jacksonville.com. For Jacksonville.com, I'm Amanda Warford.